this place of stillness for now. Taking that nice deep inhale and maybe a longer exhale. And as we exhale, we maybe imagine that that breath settles into the feet. So we'll do that just a couple more times. A deep inhale and an exhale. And take a moment just to notice your body as it's resting here in a standing position. And then I'm going to ask you to bring some awareness to the soles of your feet and really paying attention from your pinky toe in towards your big toe. And if it feels appropriate, we might shift weight inside and out to notice how that weight is distributed from pinky toe to big toe. And then letting the feet land. We might start to gently rock forward and back so we feel heels and toes. Heels and toes. Now this can be a real subtle shift. You might not really be lifting heels or toes at all. It can be a little bit bigger where the feet are coming off and the toes are coming off. I'm going to ask you to land there and notice the weight distribution between the heels and the toes. Those softened knees are important. If we lock out knees, it does shift our weight forward. So when we micro soften those knees, we get our weight right above our arches of our feet. And so just noticing those arches for a moment. Some of us have arches that are touching at this point. Some of us have high arches that are really high off of the mats, which creates a different, a different balance challenge through those toes. And then bringing awareness to ankles, to shins and knees, to thighs and hip sockets. Noticing the pelvis, the front and back side of the pelvis. Noticing if you're gripping in that backside pelvis and the buns. Can you let that gripping go? Bringing awareness to the front of the torso, and we're going to invigorate that just a little bit by drawing the belly in if possible. So we start to feel a little more solid in our core. As we inhale, that belly is going to release, but as we exhale, we think about drawing that belly in. And then building from that low back to the shoulder blade. So maybe I grow just a little taller through that back side of the spine. And bringing some awareness to your fingertips, to the palms and wrists, to the forearms and elbows, the upper arms and shoulder joints. If we could add this idea of weight to the arms are heavy and hanging down by the side, which allows our shoulders to melt a little further away from our ears. And then noticing that neck from front to sides to back. And is there any way you could adjust your head to feel like you might have the roof of your mouth right above your heart? I know that's a strange idea, but that helps create this slight tilt to our head, which gains us some length in the back of the neck. And this last idea here of length through the top of the head. So while I remain grounded, the entire sole of my foot connected, my knees soft, my belly engaged, I can lengthen just a little bit longer to try to reach the top of the head to the ceiling. Every pose we do standing today comes from this place of mountain pose. It's also a great energetic connection. We take those feet, we plug ourselves into the earth, and we draw that prana from the soles of the feet all the way up through the tops of the head to nourish that entire body. So as we begin to free up areas in the body, that prana can travel there and nourish it further. And as we're resting here in mountain pose, in this very strong, solid pose, take a moment just to notice breath without changing breath. We're inhaling into wherever it chooses to expand. Exhaling into release. 2 more breaths with that in mind. Inhaling into expansion. Exhaling into release. Inhaling into expansion. Exhaling into release. We're gonna let go of this solid pose to do a little bit of warming up here. And I'm gonna ask you to take just a little wider stance, letting your toes turn out to match those knees. And we've done this several times if you take in class with me. We're gonna tune up these chakras along the spine. And we start by just spinning. If you're a person who doesn't get dizzy and you wanna go old school, like you were maybe a 5 or 6-year-old, you can spin fully around. You spin to the right. But for those of us, and me included, who get dizzy, we may just want to fling the arms, let them tap the low back. Legs are mobile. We might start to use our gaze to look behind us. And again, as long as that doesn't make you dizzy. If you're a person who gets dizzy by moving that head, keep your head towards your screen. Keep it stable right above those shoulders. Let's do 2 more on each side. And then we're going to come back through center. We'll bring our feet comfortably wide. This time, both toes pointing in the same direction. And comfortably wide is up to you. We're going to take big shoulder rolls here. So maybe we're able to get those pretty far back, squeeze the shoulder blades. But if you're noticing you're experiencing any pain or a lot of crunching, you can go to simple shoulder shrugs. It's a nice way to treat those shoulders if you're getting a lot of messengers that say, man, this morning's just not a good idea for that. And then reverse those circles or continue your shrugs. Deep inhales and exhales. And then when you're ready, just allowing those shoulders to melt down. We'll take one ear to one shoulder, doesn't matter which side you start on, rolling forward only. A little subtle neck release and some good information about how the neck's feeling today, rolling forward. So we're not looking up at the ceiling. And the reason we don't, especially when our neck isn't quite warmed up, is if you are working with anything in the discs of the neck, that can be a little challenging. So we leave it here just with a roll forward, a couple more on each side. And then we'll rise back up through center. We're going to warm up our thighs a little bit differently. So I'm going to ask you again to take a pretty big stance. So wider than the hips, toes turn out. We're going to do our nice little surprise arms or our cactus arms, and we just bend into those knees. Now this is where we're really paying attention to that low back. I'm going to tuck my tailbone like I'm a little puppy that just got in trouble and draw my belly to spine. And from here, we call this horse pose, goddess pose, it's called a lot of things. We're trying to squeeze shoulder blades towards each other. And we're just maintaining this solid stance through our entire foot. So noticing each sole of the foot. This deep pressure through the soles of the feet is a nice way to gain a little relaxation response in the body. In the meantime, we're just doing this subtle chest opener to release some of the tension, and we're firing up these large muscles. These large muscles do so much for us all day long. We're trying to get them to release and to relax. One more breath here. And then we'll just straighten legs, take up a little bit of space. Hands come to heart. We're going to heel toe our feet towards each other. And now give yourself just about, let's say, 3 fingers width between those toes. We're going to go through our half sun salutation. We are going to flow a little bit today. And especially during our first flow, you're going to see lots of options about how to make that flow work for you today. So hands at heart, when you're ready, we're going to inhale, let fingertips rise up, keeping soft bent knees, arms reach wide. We go to where we go. Maybe it's thighs, maybe it's shin. We're going to inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, release back down to see if you can look through those legs. Arms reach wide as you inhale, rise. Back up. Exhale, hands to heart. I'm going to turn sideways just so you can see that. We inhale, fingertips reach. Exhale, soft bent knees as we dive forward. Placing hands on shins or thighs. Inhale, halfway lift, nice flat back. Exhale, release back down, look through those legs. Arms reach wide as we inhale, rise. Back up. Exhale, hands to heart. One more that way. Inhale, fingertips reach. Exhale, soft bent knees, arms reach wide. Take up that space, feel that stretch through that backside body. Inhale, press to halfway lift. Exhale, release back down. Arms reach wide as we inhale, rise. Back up. Exhale, hands to heart. This is where we begin to flow. Inhale, fingertips reach. Exhale, soft bent knees, that halfway. We're gonna pause to lift. And then release it back down. Planting hands, we're gonna step, hop, walk, or jump back into our plank. In plank, you might find your plank feels better to be down on knees. You might find your plank feels better to be knees and elbows or lengthened legs. So we're gonna hold here for just 2 more breaths. It's always an option to skip this whole flow and to go into child's pose. When you're ready, we're gonna take those knees to the floor, everybody. For this first one, we lower down. Inhale just into a low cobra. So I'm just lifting my heart off using my hands. As I exhale, I press back into my version of down dog. So I might be on palms and feet. I might be on knees and pressing back. I might be on elbows in dolphin. Picking a place that makes sense for you. We'll do 2 more breaths here. And then we're gonna walk our feet to our hands. So we're just gonna walk those feet gently to our hands. We've got those 3 fingers between the toes, a soft bent knees. We're in a forward fold that we're gonna hold here for 2 more breaths. And for you, it might feel good to bring the hands, those palms to the opposite elbow to add a little bit of weight. We'll reach arms wide. We inhale to rise back up. And then we exhale, let hands come to heart. We're gonna do that flow 2 more times. And again, options are to hang out in child's pose or modify. We're gonna inhale to reach. Exhale, soft bent knees. We'll press hands into shins or thighs. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, release back down, look through those legs. We'll place hands, we step, hop, walk, or jump back into our version of plank. Remember, knees can be down, elbows can be down. We're gonna lower to the earth. You're gonna see me lower my knees. Inhale, low cobra, or if you prefer, up dog. Exhale, press back into down dog for 5 full breaths. Reminding yourself you can be back in child's pose for those 5 full breaths. With that next exhale, we step, walk our feet or hop if you like Feet towards the hands, remain in that forward fold to fully release the neck, give the head a shake move. With your next inhale, arms reach wide. Inhale, rise back up. Exhale, hands come to heart. One last time with that flow. We're gonna inhale. Exhale, soft bent knees, arms reach wide. We'll press into shins or thighs. Inhale, halfway lift. Exhale, release to look through those legs. Hands plant. We step, hop, walk, or jump. We hang out in plank and decide where we would like to be as we lower to the earth. Inhale, low cobra, up dog. Exhale, press back down dog. 5 full breaths in down dog. This series is meant to warm up your body first thing in the morning. It is it's a version of one of the sun salutations. Let's do one more deep inhale. On your next exhale, we walk our feet to our hands. Arms reach wide on your next inhale to rise up. Exhale, hands come to heart. Bringing those 3 fingers between the toes, or that space, and arms slide down by your side. Palms might face forward, they might face your thighs. And we take a moment here in mountain to notice the body. This flow through that sun salutation to warm up every part of your body. And we just notice if there are any messages coming to us from that body, any sensations. And if nothing is present, that's okay too. We're not trying to create anything. We just allow ourselves to notice what is present. 2 more deep inhales and exhales here. We'll bring our hands to our heart. We're going to take a big step back with your right foot. Your right foot is now closest to my lotus wall here. So taking a big step back with your right foot. And we're going to bend into that front knee, in and out. If the knee goes beyond the ankle, we could probably take a bigger step back with that back foot. Now the foot can be planted parallel to the back of your mat or at an angle. We do want our hips open. We're going to be moving into our first warrior. Each of these standing poses, we're going to be holding for 5 breaths. And this idea of tweaking little things in the pose that can create a little bit more energetic connection. So when you're ready, land into that front knee. We're going to reach the arms, 1 forward, 1 back. And then we look over fingertips. Tucking the tailbone, drawing that belly in. Creating some strength and some support in that low back. Fully breathing here, inhaling and exhaling. Maybe we think about drawing those heels closer to each other. They don't really draw closer to each other, but man, does that strengthen that pose. We've got 1 more breath here. We'll take our hands, we're going to shift that front hand to the inside thigh while we straighten the leg. Back arm just slides behind the back for now. So we're trying to open that heart up, shoulders stacked. On your exhale, we slide that hand down to find our first triangle. Once you're here, if you like, you can reach the hand in any place, even all the way up and over the head that makes sense for you. If there's more to be gained as far as distance, you're welcome to slide that hand down. I'm going to keep my hand behind my back, shoulders stacked, hips opening. So we're really spiraling from that pelvis to open that heart a little bit more. 1 more breath here. And then we'll bring hands to hip. Bend into your front knee, and we're going to change hips. So now we're going to shift hips forward. So they're aiming towards the front of your mat or that front knee. We can go into 1 or 2 positions with arms. We can do our cactus arms that we practiced at the beginning, or we might go into our warrior 1 arms. We're making those lovely parallel arms or V, shoulders melt down, holding here for 4 more breaths. Warrior 1. Once again, tucking tailbone, drawing belly in, shoulders lengthening away from the ears. So we're almost pulling them down through our underarms. And then we're gonna shift arms down by our side. We're gonna take a little step in with that back foot, and we aim both toes in the same direction. And this is where it becomes a little bit of a balance challenge. So if you feel like you're on a beam, walk that front foot to the outside of your mat so you have a little bit more of a plank. So with hands down by your side, we're gonna take a little dip forward. So I'm just taking a bow. And I might decide I can go even further. So I might decide I can dip that head down. With your hands, you might be able to clasp them at your tailbone or hold on to them at your low back. They might hang out right down by your sides or on your hips. Stretching that backside body, fully lengthening through the head. Think about your mountain pose here. How do I get my shoulders away from my ears, but my head lengthening? When you're ready, inhale to rise up. We'll bring hands to hips, and we're just gonna turn our feet so toes are pointing in the same direction. I'm gonna go a little wider stance after that, but you might find you're a little bit closer. This first forward fold is really just about stretch. We're gonna soften knees, rounding forward, letting the head dip. Some of you might soften knees enough that your elbows rest. Some of us might get hands down towards the ankles. A few of us might get hands to the floor. Noticing the soles of the feet. This is where the weight in the balls of the feet becomes important. So rather than hanging out with weight in the heels, we're trying to get that weight to the balls of the feet. One more deep inhale and exhale here. We're going to use an exhale this time. So when you're ready, exhale to slowly roll up. We're going to take those front toes, we turn them back to right where we were before. In one big step, if you can make it, we're going to take that back foot and come to the front of your mat. Take a moment just to bend and wiggle. We're going to do it all on the other side. So bringing hands to heart just to center ourselves. We'll take a big step back with your left foot. So hips open up, and we're going to bend in and out of that front knee. Once again, if that knee goes beyond the ankle, you could probably get further back with that foot as long as that works for knee and hips. That back foot is either at an angle or parallel to the back of your mat. We're going to land in that front knee. We go into our warrior two arms, looking over those fingertips for 5 breaths here. Noticing if we can draw that sense of heels coming closer to each other to increase the strength in the legs. Can we grow taller through the head? Can we tuck that tailbone just a little bit to find some release in that low back? One last breath here. We're going to take that front arm, slide it inside of the thigh, back arm for now at the hip. We straighten our front leg, and we find some distance to travel here. Shoulder spiraling open. Hand has lots of options. Back arm can slide behind the back, can reach all the way up and overhead. Shoulder, if it is reaching all the way towards your ear, it's drawing away from your ear. And if there's more to be gained, you can go a little bit lower. I'm going to slide my hand behind my back. Fully breathing here. Noticing if the body's inclination is to hold breath. When you're ready, bend into the front knee, bring your hands to your hips, and shift the hips towards that front knee. We might need to make adjustments with that back foot. We go into our warrior one, still bending into that front knee. We might go into cactus arms. We might have our warrior one arms reaching up and overhead. Tailbone tucked, belly engaged, soles of the feet fully planted so we feel the weight and the front and the back, the inside and the outside of the foot. One last breath here. We're going to take and swing our hands down towards the side. We give ourselves a little fold forward. And then from our fold forward, take that little step forward and turn both toes to the front edge of your mat. We straighten both legs. A little different balance. We tipped our head forward first and then moved, which is a little more balanced challenge. Hands can stay hovering down by your side. They can meet right here at the waist, or they can connect behind your back. If it makes sense for you to go just a little bit deeper, allowing that head to dip. Fully breathing here. One last inhale and exhale. With your next inhale, rising up, bending into that front knee, hands come to hips. Let's turn toes in the same direction. So we might go a little bit wider. We might come a little bit closer depending on your hips. On your next exhale, we slowly start to round down. We can use that first one where we soften knees. Maybe we're grabbing hold or resting hands. If hands have gotten to the floor, an option here is to revolve. So we would place our right hand underneath the face and reach the left arm up towards the ceiling. Now, if revolving creates some interesting feedback from your low back, be careful here. You can be in any spot, elbows, hang on to ankles, letting the hands just simply hold in the middle of the feet. If you are in a twist, we're gonna switch sides. So that left palm comes right underneath the face. We inhale to open up. Neck is released. And for me, neck release means I'm usually staring at the wall instead of the ceiling, but you might be staring at the ceiling. You might have your gaze down at your mat for a nice released neck if you're in this twist. We'll bring hands down. So stay with me here. This is a little bit different. We're gonna heel toe while we're in this forward fold, and we're gonna let our tailbone dip. Now, some of us are gonna be in a tailbone dip that looks a lot like our forward fold, where we've got our buns a little bit higher, almost looks like we're having a seat. Depending on your hip structure, you might be able to get that tailbone down just a little bit deeper. Your heels might be off or on. We'll bring hands to heart if you've gotten that tailbone down to open up hips in a grounding pose. So here, just holding where it makes sense. And often you'll hear people say, well, this is about flexibility. And I always like to say, probably more about how your bones are put together. So we honor that. We make adjustments and adapt for how our bones are put together. One more deep inhale and exhale here. And for everybody, we come into a forward fold. I'm gonna heel toe my feet until I have about 2 hands width between them. I'm just gonna hang out in my forward fold, softening knees, grabbing hold of my opposite elbow with my hands, giving my head a nice nod, yes. A slow shake, no. With your next exhale, we just let fingertips dangle and we slowly roll up. We're going to do a bit of a counter stretch. I'm just going to turn sideways. I'm going to grab hold of either my palms, my wrists, or my elbows, and I'm squeezing my shoulders together. Now I have a pretty big sway to my back, so I'm going to tuck my tailbone just a little bit to make sure I'm protecting that back, looking straight ahead. This nice counter stretch. We'll release hands down by your side, still giving yourself about 2 hands width between the feet. So 2 hands, or we can look at 8 fingers and 2 thumbs. We're going to bring hands to heart. We're going to do a balance here. So I always like to say, if you need to grab hold of a wall, of a couch, of a chair, something that's handy, feel free to do that. A little different balance today. We're going to be shifting from side to side and twisting from side to side. So it might be handy to have something nearby that you can hold on to. We're going to shift weight to our right foot, the foot that's closest to the lotus here for you. And then I'm going to ask you to just slide your left toes forward. I'm going to turn sideways so you can see what that looks like. So my left toes are forward. And then perhaps I'm able to bring my toes off and my knee into a 90-degree knee. Now this may be it. You may be in a big balance challenge. If you want to increase the challenge, we're going to take your right hand to grab hold of the outside of your left thigh. That back hand can just simply slide behind your tailbone. If your balance still isn't feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my balance, we start to shift the head. That shifting of the head can be a really interesting experience. We'll bring our gaze back forward, foot comes back down, those 4 or 8 fingers, two hands width between the feet. Give everything a little bounce, a little wiggle. Hands come to heart to center us, or you may feel more centered with arms out. We're going to go ahead and shift to the left foot. Right toe step forward. I might flex my foot so my toes come off. I might lift my knee up. If I want to increase the challenge, I'm going to take my left hand to the outside of that knee. My right hand slides behind as I begin to shift my gaze. Little standing twist here with a lot of balance challenge. We'll go ahead and come back through center, hands come to heart, feet come back down. We're going to do each side one more time. Now we know where we're headed. We have some information about our balance. We might have some ideas about where we can take our balance. Shifting weight to your right foot. Left toes come forward. If this is a balance challenge, stay put. Maybe toes come off. Maybe leg lifts up. Perhaps we take that right hand to grab hold of the outside, letting that back hand just rest down for now, and perhaps we shift our gaze. Still long, tall, and strong through that torso. Letting our gaze shift back forward. Foot comes down, hands come back to heart or wide to center. Give it all a little wiggle and a bounce. We're going to shift over to your left foot. Right toes come forward. Perhaps foot comes off. Excuse me. Maybe we're able to bring that knee up. Perhaps we take the left hand to come to the outside. Back hand or that right hand just slides behind the back as we twist to look over that shoulder if appropriate. All of this is in service of gaining balance. So we really are trying to get out of balance. That helps us gain balance. We'll release the head back forward, releasing the foot back down. Give everything a little wiggle and a shake. We'll slide our feet a little closer together. So now about 2 fingers width between those big toes. Give yourself that forward and back. Excuse me. Inside and out. Coming back to our mountain pose, so soft knees, relaxed low back, a little belly engagement here. We might draw shoulders up, back and down. Palms can face thighs or they can face forward. Chin is parallel to the floor, head is lifting, top of the head trying to get to the ceiling. Eyes open or closed, a moment here to reconnect, to plug back in, to let this prana that has been flowing through the body and opening up in areas settle into the spaces that it needs to settle into. We allow the body's wisdom to figure all of that out. That is nothing that we have to use our thinking mind to do. So just pausing here, pausing in this stillness, plugging in, getting grounded, centered, and allowing your notice to travel to any sensation that might be calling to you. If eyes are closed, with your next inhale, we gently flutter those eyes open. We'll bring our hands to our heart. We're going to move to the floor, and we're going to do that with the sun salutation. So I'm going to turn sideways. We'll inhale, let fingertips rise up. Exhale, soft bent knees as we dive forward. We're going to plant the hand, step, hop, walk, or jump back into that plank. And we go through that flow. I'm going to drop my knees. You can go down in a full plank. We'll inhale either low cobra, up dog. This time, we're going to press back into a half or quarter dog is what we usually call it, or called puppy. So I'm going to leave my knees down. I'm going to send my hips right above the knees, stretch my fingertips as far as I can, and rest my head. If you've taken yen with me, this is what we call our melting heart. So just 6 full breaths here. If this is really too interesting, meaning you're getting a lot of feedback that you need to change it, you can shift back into child's pose. So belly is just dropping with ease towards the mat. We're fully breathing here to open up that upper part of the body, the shoulders, the side body, the heart space. When you're ready, we're going to rise up to tabletop. We're going to go into our, what we would call pigeon in our yan practice. And this one can be a little tricky for some knees. So I'm going to have a modification or an adaptation for you if it makes sense to do it a little bit differently. For those of us whose hip structure allows, we're going to take our right knee forward. Right knee comes forward, and then I'm just going to kind of scooch my ankle out in front of my opposite thigh and settle back into this length through the back of the thigh. Now, if that is really tricky for your knee, we're going to go ahead and send the knee just halfway forward. So halfway forward, don't change the ankle if you can, and then we just walk that leg back a little bit, and you can adjust for knee compression as far as you like with that knee walk, or that back leg walking back. So options too, to stay in tabletop, to maybe go into child's pose if this is a difficult pose for you. And it can be a difficult pose for a lot of us. This is a really tight area, and we have to have knee joints that cooperate and hip joints that cooperate. When you're ready, we're going to fold forward if it makes sense for you. So for those of you modifying, you're in that soft knee, just coming down to elbows. So we still keep that knee compression at a lower level, not as compressed as we would be in our pigeon if we're folding forward. Being in this space where maybe if you rock back and forth, you can find sensation that is more intense or less intense for you. This opening of that hip joint. We were talking a little bit at the beginning of class of it's not so always quite so obvious that we're actually releasing low back. And this is one of those that is a great way to release low back. Let's just do one more breath here. And then we're going to rise back up, walking those hands back. We take that right knee, let it join the left, and we're going to give our tail a pretty big wag. Maybe you give your head a pretty big shake. We're going to move through that other side. So I'm going to walk my left knee forward. For those of us modifying, this might be it. We might walk that back leg back a little further, or we might hang out here. If you'd like to go a little bit deeper and knees and hips allow, we slide that ankle around to the front of the thigh. We walk our hands back. This is a back bend, so we're listening to that low back asking what it might like. If there's pinching or pain, we need to come forward a little bit. The stretch of the front of the thigh to begin with, also not quite as obvious, but a way to release that low back. When you're ready, exhaling down into a space where you sense some opening, some release, some resistance in that outside left thigh or maybe the bun cheek. Breathing fully here, letting this experience come to you. Adjusting if there's a message that says there needs to be an adjustment. Two more full deep inhales and exhales here. When you're ready, we inhale to walk ourselves back up, bringing knees back to join each other. We give our tailbones a little wag. Because we were in a back bend, we're gonna spend a few breaths back in our child's pose. If child's pose is a little tricky, again, because of knee compression or back, we might be on elbows and just rounding the back, dropping the head. Two more full deep inhales and exhales here. And then we'll rise back up. We're going to come to a seated position. So just shifting, either maybe rolling over those ankles or swinging those feet around in order to come into a seated position, a comfortable seat. We might be sitting crisscross. We might have legs that are stretching straight out in front of us. So take a moment as we come into that settled seat to notice both sits bones here. The sits bones are right in your bun cheeks. They're sharp little points. We do want to have those connected. We're going to do a little bit of opening through the shoulders and a little bit more opening through the hips before we move to rest on the floor. So I'm going to ask you to take your left hand and it comes down to the floor. Our right arm starts to reach out to a T with palm facing up. And I'm really actually paying attention to this right hip. As I start to lean over, I want to make sure if I can that that hip is pressing in. So I only lean so far as I can keep that bun connected. If it makes sense for you to reach that arm up and overhead, you can. It might stay out into a T. For some of us working with shoulder stuff, it might slide right behind the back. Lots of ways to adapt this pose to make it suit your shoulders. A few of you might be able to get a little bit lower on that elbow while we're pushing that opposite hip in. So there's lots of places to go. Distance is really less important than the sensation of the stretch through the right side body. It's a lot like our triangle pose, but we're keeping ourselves a little bit more honest through that hip structure because we're seated. When you're ready, rise up. Let both hands just land. Give those shoulders a little wiggle. We're going to do it on the other side. So planting right palm, pressing opposite hip in. Arm goes where it goes. So behind the back, reaching all the way up and over. Finding this space for really thinking about rib cage and breathing into that space of the ribs. Expanding an opportunity for more breath and more lung utilization. One more inhale and exhale here. We'll rise back up. We're going to do each side one more time. We're targeting now on this side this idea of maybe I go from underarm, but could I feel it in my hip structure? So we're expanding through that rib cage. But this is also a release for two glutes, glute me, glute men, that have trigger points in them and can create some of that low back pain, that mystery low back pain. So this is a nice side stretch to address some of that mystery low back pain. We'll rise back up through center. And last time we're going to go over to that right side. Arm reaches or it doesn't. to get a sense of that opening through rib cage, but maybe even lower into where if we were going to put our hands on our hips in frustration, that particular area. And then we'll rise back up. A gentle twist in one direction. Doesn't matter which direction. We're just going to grab hold and give ourselves an opportunity. Just a gentle twist, so we don't have to go too deep. And then we'll switch sides, gentle twist to the opposite side. We'll come back through center. We're going to release our hamstrings. We're going to do that reclining on our back. So if you need to make any adjustments with your screen, I always suggest moving the screen so you can sort of see it right by your knee or thigh, so you're looking down the legs versus having to look over, if that makes sense for you. When you're ready, we're going to roll to our backs. And sometimes releasing hamstrings is a little easier in a reclining position because we aren't as impeded by our hip structure. We're going to begin with the right side. And so rather than mirror you, I'm going to begin with my true right side. So my left leg stretches nice and long, and I'm going to draw my right knee to my chest. Now I might hang on at shin, I might hang on behind thigh. And for a few of us, this could create a lot of tension where we end up lifting the head. And if that's the case, if you have a couch pillow close by, you may want to place a pillow behind your head. Or if you have a yoga block, that's a good way to do it too. This first part of our hamstring release is really all about that bun cheek area. We talked about our sits bones, those sharp points, the bony points in our buns. That is where our hamstrings originate. So we have 3 of those muscles that attach into that bony protuberance. And we're just allowing that stretch to happen from that bun cheek to start. We're going to increase it here in just a moment. And as we know from Yen, the longer we hold it, the more pliable the connective tissue, in this case the tendons that hold the muscle to the bone, the more pliable they become. When you're ready, we're just going to kick the foot up to a space that makes sense for you. So when you start to feel a stretch, or what often presents as resistance or tension, that's where we're going to pause. And it's going to look different for everybody. Often we think if we don't get that straight leg, we're not getting the full stretch. That's not always true. We don't have to have a straight leg in order to get the stretch that we're looking for here in the back of the leg. So holding here with the least amount of tension in the shoulders possible, fully breathing. When we go this deep, the body likes to hold on to the breath. So we're reminding ourselves, make sure you're breathing. If there are a few of you in the crowd with those long arms and stretchy legs, you might grab hold of big toes, get that straight leg to draw back closer to you. Again, that destination is not necessarily where we're headed, it's the journey. What does this feel like? What are the sensations? When you're ready, bend and soften the knee. And we're going to use our arms, if we can, to really rock that hip and the hip joint. So I'm trying to let my leg muscles relax, kind of a floppy leg here as I use my arm strength to rock my knee in that hip joint, or that head of the femur really in that hip joint. Sending the leg long and leaving both legs long here for a moment. And bringing some awareness to sensation in the right leg versus the left. Maybe it's the back of the leg or the hip joint. And just a moment to notice differences and similarities in those sides. The right side, which we opened up, and the left side, which we're getting ready to open up. We'll switch legs. Left knee draws in while right leg stays put. We start with the heel towards the bun, drawing knee into a space that makes sense towards the chest, and just allowing ourselves to relax here. Head and shoulders are released. An opportunity to stretch those hamstrings from their origin, a little longer hold, perhaps to encourage a little more pliability in the connective tissue, those tendons of the hamstrings. And checking in with breath. Inhaling and exhaling. When you're ready, beginning to straighten the leg, or at least send the foot towards the ceiling. If we're getting that sense of, wow, that's plenty, leaving the knees soft. Some of us might straighten the leg and walk maybe a little bit higher up. A few of you might grab hold of the big toe with a nice straight leg to get that deepest stretch for you and for where you're at today. Inhaling and exhaling here. Two more full deep inhales and exhales. And when you're ready, letting that heel drop towards that bun, we go ahead and rock that leg in the hip joint using the muscles of the arms versus the legs. It's a floppy leg. Stretching that left leg long to join the right and taking a moment again to notice the sides, the right side as compared to the left side. Noticing what sensations might be similar or different. And we're going to go from compression in the front of the thighs to release in the front of the thighs. Now this is a time, if it's part of your practice, if you're a plow person, feet going up and overhead, or a shoulder stand person, this is your time. For those of us, me included, working with neck stuff and low back stuff, we're going to move into our bridge pose. So heels come towards the buns, fairly close. For now, arms are resting down by your side. We're going to take that belly and lift it up towards the ceiling. I'm pressing into the entire sole of each foot, keeping my inner thighs parallel to each other. We would be careful not to let the knees drop out to the sides. And maybe I can clasp hands underneath. And if I can, I might walk my shoulder blades a little closer together to see if there is a lift that I can get that might be just a bit higher. It's okay if hands don't clasp. Gaze is on the ceiling to protect the neck. We're fully breathing here. If you are in plow or shoulder stand, we're really interested in keeping the weight in the shoulder blades and between the shoulder blades. If it feels stressful in the back of the neck or you feel pressure in the head that is too intense, the pose is probably too intense today. So you may want to join us in bridge. 2 more breaths. We'll give ourselves that big bear hug as we start to melt down one vertebrae at a time. And we counterbalance that by drawing knees into chest, maybe rocking side to side. We're going to go into a little bit of a longer hold, and I have 3 choices for you, or you can choose whatever you like here. We're going to either go into our happy baby, which is that psoas release, where knees are wide, we might be hanging on behind thighs, shins, outer edges. Some of us might prefer, pardon me, a reclining bound angle, where my soles of my feet are together and my knees drop out. For a couple of us, that might just be way too intense in the hip joints. So we might do the opposite, where I'm going to walk my feet wide and my knees drop towards each other with ease. So feet go as wide as it makes sense to drop those knees towards each other with ease. So constructive rest pose. We might be in our bound angle, reclining, so soles of the feet together, or our butterfly. Or you may be in your happy baby pose. We're going to be here, let's say, for 2 minutes, which is a little bit longer hold. Ideally, any of these could be held up to 5 minutes or even longer when we're really talking about the yin tissue of the body. But for now, we'll play with this 2 minutes in this particular pose. While we're here, we're trying to work towards zero effort. So I don't have a lot of muscle that is firing. Now, if you're in Happy Baby, you're going to feel shoulders, you're going to feel your fingers and the muscles of your fingers firing. But we're trying to fully be without muscle tension or in ease. And that allows us to get to some of that deeper tissue, allows us to get a little deeper into the space of the body that's going to create more mobility. Our Yan practice, this movement, the slow flow, is about change. The Yan energy is about change. It's the energy of the sun. It is about strength and flexibility. The Yin energy of the body is the energy of the moon, of stillness, of opportunities to go into the deeper spaces of the body to create more mobility. If at any point this longer hold feels uncomfortable to the point of pain, you want to release it. There may be some discomfort, but that discomfort could really lead to release. So only you know that edge. Having compassion to move and change if it makes sense, to honor what your body is telling you. Maybe taking a moment to notice breath as we're nearing the end of our practice. What is the breath like at this point? We've released some physical spaces for breath. Maybe we've released some internal energy that was creating tension. Is there more ease to the breath? Is, in this case, depending on your pose, is there more effort to breath? For all of us, we begin to release, taking legs long along the mat, arms stretch overhead or out into a T. If you're working with shoulder stuff, you may want to have them lower. And just give yourself that best morning stretch. Inhaling to lengthen. We're going to begin to move into our final relaxation. And for some of us, that might be Shavasana. I rarely model Shavasana, so since I'm here, I'll demonstrate it. So we're coming into a space where the feet walk fairly wide, palms face up. They're walking away from the hip structure, maybe squeezing buns and shoulder blades together. So we're resting here on our backs with some distance between feet and hands. Now, for some of us, Shavasana is not that relaxing. So you might pick a different space, a different place where your yoga shape doesn't even have to look like a shape. It's a place where you can be most at ease. If you have a wall handy, it's a great time for legs up the wall, or a seat handy for a modified or adapted legs up the wall. Maybe you prefer to rest on your side. Maybe you prefer to rest on your belly. Blankets, sweatshirts, socks. An opportunity to find space here where you can rest in ease. I know some of us are working and may need to shift into work mode. If you're able to relax, we're going to be here for about 7 minutes, resting in ease, and then we're going to finish off with a little bit of our pranayama or breath work. So as you're here, taking a few deep inhales, longer exhales, settling in into the body, breathing itself. The breath is traveling where it chooses and how it chooses. We invite the mind to quiet, and often that invitation looks a lot like longer pauses between thoughts. We let go of all of the doing of our morning, all of the doing of our week so far, And we invite ourselves to just simply be, to be resting here in ease, to be resting in release, and perhaps to be resting in a sense of well-being or peace. Beginning to bring awareness back to the sound of my voice, back to the space that we're sharing with others. Inviting that deeper inhale and that longer exhale. We begin to reawaken the body, maybe starting by wiggling fingers and toes, circling wrists and ankles. It might feel good to start to stretch with arms overhead or to draw knees into chest. And in your own way and your own time, we're going to begin to bring ourselves into a seated position that feels comfortable to you, whatever that may be. And as we begin to find that comfortable seat, we're really trying to set ourselves up here for a little bit of pranayama with a nice, long, tall spine. So a comfortable, long, tall spine, a grounded seat. Today, we're going to finish our practice off with what is called a 4-to-4 breath. And we're inhaling for our own personal number of beats, which is 4. And then we'll exhale for 4. And then we're going to add a pause at the top and a pause at the bottom, what we call retain and suspend. So we begin with a 4-to-4 breath and we notice how we're feeling about that. If it feels like we're out of breath or we can't catch our breath, we let go of the pattern. If as we're moving through this 4-to-4 breath, it makes sense for you to retain for a beat at the top and suspend, I'll help instruct you through that. And again, if we are sparking a response in the body, it says, I can't breathe, we let go of the pattern, because then we're doing the opposite of what we'd like to do. We're sparking an emergency response with what feels like an inability to catch our breath. So take a nice deep inhale, a longer exhale. We'll begin with together. So we'll all be counting for you and then I'll let you go here on your own. So taking that deep inhale for 4 counts, 3, 2, 1. Exhaling, 4, 3, 2, 1. 2 more together. Inhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last time together. Inhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 more on your own. If it makes sense, we add a pause at the top. So we inhale for 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Pause. 2 more times. Inhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Retain. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Suspend. Inhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Retain. Exhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Suspend. 5 more. your own time. And then just allowing that pattern to go. A nice deep inhale, a longer exhale, just taking a moment to notice how this all feels. How does your physical practice feel? How does that breath work feel to you? And then if this gesture feels okay for you, we place palms together. Thumbs are resting right in front of the heart. May all be well. May all have peace. And may we all be filled with compassion and loving kindness. The light in me is honored and grateful for the light in each of you. I vow to you. Namaste.